Hi YouTube, welcome.
I'm Conor.
I'm Marissa, and together we are
Carissa.
Carissa. Thanks for joining us. I know a lot of people post videos on YouTube talking about Q&As with not very much an emphasis on the A, so we hope to provide you some real talk with answers of some Q&As that have been brought to us.
So I think it would be best for you to ask the questions.
Sure, I'll ask the
And
questions.
I'll answer at least the ones. Most of them are kind of directed at disability, so that's more my wheelhouse.
So, what is your mobility like? Question number 1.
I'd say extremely limited, meaning I need assistance with all ADLs. For those of you unfamiliar with that term, ADL means activities of daily living, which are essentially everything that you do in your daily life. So, dressing, bathing, toileting, feeding, housework. What else am I missing?
I don't think anything.
I will say it's probably easier to list the things that I can do versus the things that I can't. There's certainly a much shorter list. I am able to feed myself, but the setup that allows me to feed myself is very specific.
Conor uses a specific bowl and cup so that way it's easier to hold and, eat from. Additionally, food typically has to be cut into smaller pieces, bite size.
Pretty much it has to be with a spoon.
Yeah, it has to be chopped up fine enough to it can fit on a spoon easily and not be hanging over, so to speak.
Yeah. Also,
He does have specific spoons he likes using too.
I do have specific spoons. I buy them on Amazon in the caseload, mostly because paid caregivers tend to throw them out because they're plastic. Plastic means lighter, which is easier for me, but people also assume that plastic means disposable, which isn't always the case. I think another big aspect is food groups. I don't particularly love meat, not because of any moral reason, but just because it's harder to chew.
Although I have been opening him up to steak via the sous vide.
That is true.
Maybe I've converted him.
I love the flavor. It's just how easy is it to eat. Also, she's converted me to shopping at Sprouts, which I'm cheap. So it took a lot to get me to shop at Sprouts. But I have to say, there's a huge difference between grass-fed beef and
Non-grass-fed beef,
sure.
grain finished, grain fed, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So I think that covers the mobility question.
And some.
And so,
All right, question number 2. What hobbies or interests do we have in common?
I think there's a lot. Theater is a big one.
Mm-hmm.
When Marissa first moved it to the area and we moved in together, we actually bought a year pass to our local theater company, local theater.
Yeah, I
What
think
do you call that?
it's a theater company, but I think
Okay.
it's like the Broadway. Like each city has
Broadway
their own Broadway
series,
series.
yeah. And I think that year was 6 shows
I
a
think
year.
we even added a couple
We
on.
did. And it wasn't cheap, so I mean that was a activity that we really decided that we liked it so much as a couple that we invested in, and we made date nights out of it.
The next one is, I think we both have in common, is travel.
Travel is big. This is a tough one because traveling with a disability is no easy task, but it's definitely something that we both really enjoy, so we make it work. Mostly it's on our road trips.
I think I opened you up to road trips.
You
though.
did.
I don't think he was a road trip fan.
Yeah, prior to Marissa, my concept of a road trip was like 2 hours, to me, that was a long drive. We now regularly drive 30 hours
Yeah.
in a clip.
And I mean, we've driven 20, 13, 15 hours, just depending on where we're going. I think
Yeah,
we road trip frequently.
we make regular trips to the Southwest, so that's 30 hours. But this year we drove to Key West that was for work, but
we extended a little.
Yeah, we bookended the trip. So I had a work meeting in St. Petersburg, but then we bookended the trip and both took off the next week and drove to Key West.
Yeah.
That was fun.
We've done Indianapolis.
We've done Indianapolis for the eclipse and for a wedding. Our wedding. We've been to the Dominican Republic.
Yeah.
That was our first international trip as a couple.
Yeah.
And thank God you speak Spanish.
I don't speak Spanish.
She speaks Spanish. Enough to get by.
And if you'd like to see videos about traveling, please let us know in the comments below if that's something that interests you.
Yeah. We are working on a video. It's not ready yet about our honeymoon. So, just a teaser. We did a honeymoon in Morocco for 2 weeks. And that was a unforgettable trip. So keep an eye out for that video. It'll be dropping here probably within the next week or so.
The other thing I think we have in common is thrift store shopping.
We do. That was actually one of the things I wrote.
Hookered me in.
That hooked you in, yeah. There's a bunch of thrift stores in our area. So we typically will check in, every now and then. They also have Instagrams, and I monitor them regularly.
I think another thing we have is like tinkering, doing, house projects.
Absolutely.
Creating things together.
Yeah, we are much more into doing things in the home ourselves. So, I think one of the next big projects that we are considering is redoing our kitchen, which means taking out cabinetry, putting up new cabinetry. Obviously, I'm not going to be helping with that. Melissa will be doing it on her own, but, the planning, the designing, the procurement will probably mostly be me.
Yeah, for sure. And then another thing I think we have in common.
This was a convert.
Oh, was it a convert?
You converted me.
I converted you.
I am a true East Coast born liberal, and you converted me to enjoying shooting.
To the Second Amendment, right?
Yeah. It's an activity that we enjoy together. We found a local range that is accessible. We've got
super accommodating.
There's a lot of adaptive equipment that I have to use to shoot, but we researched some companies that make various mounts, hair triggers, things like that. And yeah, we haven't done that as much recently.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was truly like wedding planning season just hit us hard.
Yeah.
I think one more is, I don't know if it's a common interest or not.
I think it is.
It's cooking.
Yeah. We have different styles, so we both enjoy it, but I think there's friction when we cook together because, again, different styles. I, like a true engineer, am very precise. Melissa
will not let me use red wine for non-red wine labeled recipes. Or I have to use the dry measuring cup instead of the liquid measuring cup.
They're different.
So comment below if you think they're the same and support his claim, or comment below if you think that you can just use anyone, because I think that's the way it's supposed to work.
They're different. A quarter cup dry is different than a quarter cup Wicked.
So as you can see, we do both enjoy cooking, but I am more of a, well, it says 1/4 teaspoon, but like if I eyeball it, I think I could get 1/4 teaspoon, whether it's over a 1/4 teaspoon or not. So that's kind of our cooking commonality.
They make directions for a reason. That's all I'm saying.
So, as you know, that's what we have in common. Next question is number 3. Do you still have caregivers?
Clearly, that's why I have you.
Wow.
No, of course I still have caregivers. That hasn't changed since Marissa has moved in. My caregiver schedule is a little bit in flux right now because I'm transitioning agencies. But the typical schedule is I have an overnight nurse that basically monitors my breathing machine, which I use to sleep. They're also there to turn me when I need to be turned so that I don't have to wake Marissa up. We've seen other videos about other influencers that have essentially suggested that the breathing machine would be so loud that a interabled couple would not sleep in the same bed together. I can tell you that's not true. Does it bother you?
It doesn't, but for context, I did go to college in a dorm room, in a dorm building next to the kitchen. So
Okay.
I don't know if I've been desensitized.
That's fair. I mean, you sleep like a rock.
Okay, so yeah, it doesn't bother me.
No. So the overnight nurse is there for 8 hours. In the morning, I have somebody come in for 4 hours. They're there to essentially get me up, get me dressed, get me showered, not in that order, and help with meal prep and getting ready for work. Then I go to work. I'm pretty much alone for the 8 hours at work. When work is over, I come home. Again, another 4 hours. From there, I have somebody come in and basically help me get changed out of work clothes, use the bathroom if I have to, dinner prep. Yeah, that's about it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
All right, question number 4. What does an emergency evacuation plan look like for us? I'm so glad you asked. We have this handy dandy binder.
Which is perfectly useless. My agency demanded a emergency evacuation plan. Would you like to
Yes.
read the evacuation plan?
In the event of a fire, flood, or any emergency that requires evacuation of the home, get yourself and your client out. Meet in the shelter in place. Pets plan, shelter in place. In case of flood or blizzard, shelter in place. In case of tornado, shelter in place. In case of earthquake, shelter in place.
Where is the shelter in place location?
In the shelter in place place?
So it doesn't divide it.
No.
Clearly, home care is top notch, as you can
And
tell.
other emergency equipment are emergency response bag, O2 oximeter, first aid kit, blankets, food, water in the kitchen, flashlights, a radio, a phone, and there are smoke alarms in the living room and the kitchen.
Great. No,
Also, if you are in a life-threatening emergency, please call 911.
in all seriousness, if it was a true emergency, I think Marissa would just carry me out of the building.
Yeah.
I mean, I only weigh about 40 pounds, 45 pounds, and we're on the second floor, so getting out would be not that difficult.
Or we could get a really, really long ramp and just deploy it and just let you sail down it out the window.
I don't think that would be very safe.
Fair.
To be fair, we live in a building that's been around since 1908.
I think something
It's
like
a
that. I don't know, whatever our historical plaque
yes.
states.
It's a converted factory, but it's a concrete building. And we live in an area that the only natural disasters that we really get are snowstorms. So I don't think flooding that big of a danger. We don't really worry about wildfires. We don't worry about earthquakes. We don't worry about hurricanes. We occasionally get superstorms. Superstorm Sandy hit, that area that was kind of big, but it didn't really do much in our area.
I mean, in all honesty, I do think that we should be getting a backup battery pack.
It's fair.
Just because you do have medical equipment that need to be charged, and if we were out of power, like that would
But our
be.
building is a backup generator.
That is true. So,
Although
recently, as we know,
this is a topical question. I am currently working from home because last week, about 30 minutes before I was set to leave for the day, the building power went out. And the backup generator didn't get in. And I was stuck in my office after hours for an hour.
I think so, yeah.
So I told my boss I would not be coming back in until they fixed the backup generator.
So, moral of the story is we hope that our backup generator is
Yeah.
working. All right, next question. Question number 5. Any pets or service animals?
No service animals. I was looking to get one when I was younger. The research that I kind of done led me to the conclusion that they were more, I'm just going to use the word work, than my lifestyle really afforded. And definitely more than our lifestyle affords. Pets, we do have pets. We have 3 cats that we live with. We have 1 dog that currently lives with Marissa's family. He's just got too much energy to live in an apartment in a city. I did have a dog myself for 17 years. And we just had to, unfortunately, put her down about 2 months ago. No, 6 months ago.
Yeah.
One of the hardest things I've ever done. And I miss her dearly. But it was her time.
Yeah, are we thinking about getting any other pets?
But I would. Marissa won't let me.
Next question. Question number 6. How do you show or exercise independence?
I mean, this is a very good question, but it's also really difficult to answer. I've lived independently my entire life. So it's a weird thing to have to explain.
I mean, that's a lie. Not your entire life. There was a point in time where you were not independent.
That's fair. When I was 18, I decided I was going to college like everyone else. So I went away to college. And I didn't just go away. I went as far as I possibly could to California. I went to UC Berkeley, lived in California for 5 years, 3,000 miles away from any support network that I had. From there, I moved to DC, also several hundred miles away from support network. I've lived alone, on my own ever since. Obviously, not alone anymore. But yeah, I've just been independent since I was 18. What does that look like from a microscopic scale? Dealing with caregivers, dealing with an agency, managing the agency to make sure that the caregivers are coming in when I need them to, doing the tasks that I need them to. I'm very vocal and very articulate, if you couldn't tell, so I really have no problem managing that. I have a full-time job, I pay my own bills, pay my taxes. As far as independence of like physical things, I do have my Jaco arm, which I use, which gives me a lot of autonomy in being able to, open doors, uh, get drinks, push elevator buttons. So it's really opened up a world of independence as far as not needing caregivers to do things. I do think it's worth pointing out that independent means something different to everyone. So to me, having caregivers doesn't make me not independent. That is the thing that makes me independent. Just because I can't put my shirt on myself, as long as I am able to facilitate that, I would still classify that as independent. To me, not being independent would be living with my parents or living in an institution, things like that.
All right, question number 7. Do we have any goals besides kids in the future?
We do. I think I'll let you take this one.
You'll let me take this?
This is your favorite one.
My favorite one?
Yeah.
Sure, I guess. One of the goals that we have in the future is building a house. I think that we have realized that the housing market, when it comes to accessibility, is
Sucks.
I was gonna say non-existent, but it does exist. It's like unicorns in the real estate department. So we just realized in order to create a home space that is best for us, I think we needed to build it. So just kind of going through the process of opening that can of worms. If you've ever done that, kudos to you, because it is a process and it is a trying time.
And where are we in the process?
Still trying to get the architecture plans done.
We're about 90% done, the architecture plans, which that was its own form of couples counseling.
I was going to say it might be called therapy.
Yeah.
And I feel really bad. Bonus points to our architect. Thank you for being there for that.
He's definitely a good double as a therapist.
We have, done DIY things together. We're pretty smart in terms of, figuring things out.
I think so.
So I think one of the projects we want to take on in the future is finding a possible property to purchase and renovate into like an accessible space to rent out.
Like an Airbnb. Because it's frustrating how little Airbnbs are accessible.
Correct. Yeah. All right, next question. Question number 8.
This is a big one. One that people love to ask.
Into me I see. Also known as intimacy.
Intimacy. So we talked a little bit about this in a previous video, and we'll link that below. I would say, on a high level, we of course have sex. And I don't know why that's a question that everyone asks. I do know why. I mean, that's like top 3 things that anyone is interested in, period. So, of course it's a question. I get it. You see someone like me and you think he can't, or why would she, how do they, all of those questions. Communication. The communication is key. And it's awkward at times because, there are things that I can't do without assistance. And so I have to instruct her how to do them, where to put what, and how to insert what, and how to move what, when, all these things, we have to talk about. That actually kind of makes it better. From a very obvious standpoint, I think climaxing for me is easier than for you. That said, I think that's pretty typical of just the male-female differences. But with open communication, I think it makes it easier, right?
Yeah.
Also, as with disability, just in general, there's a lot of experimenting with positions, with assistive devices, but we make it work. We've found things that work for us. We've found things that absolutely don't work for us.
Yeah.
We've set limits and safe words. Anything you add?
No, I think that's.
She gets really shy around this, as you can tell. So we'll move on to the next question.
All right. Question number 9. Growing up with SMA, what was it like?
Honestly, I didn't really know. I mean, obviously I knew. I was never treated any differently. I was put in school with everyone else. My parents got me to do all the same activities that everyone else did. I knew I was disabled. I didn't really understand kind of the gravity of what that meant for my life until I was about 18 and had to deal with, well, what comes next. I would say I was definitely way more able-bodied as I was younger. Puberty really sucked for me, and I think puberty just really sucks in general, but it's even harder on people with SMA. Our bodies kind of plateau at an ability level. Typically, that plateau happens pre-puberty, and then when puberty hits, we get bigger. So as soon as my body grew in size, my muscles didn't really keep up, so I lost a lot of movement post-puberty. That pretty much was growing up with SMA. It wasn't something that was a active part. Well, of course it was an active part. That's a silly thing to say. It wasn't the forefront of my childhood.
All right. Serious, not serious question. Did you come out in a wheelchair?
I did not come out in a wheelchair. In fact, I crawled at one point.
Out?
No, I crawled as a baby.
Oh, okay.
What about you? What was going on with SMA like for you?
Well, you see, I did have all my SMNs.
That's true.
So I feel empowered to use my allyship to hold quiet so others can talk about their experiences with SMA.
Gotcha.
And the last question, question number 10. What's our daily life like?
What is our daily life like?
Get up, drink coffee, go to work, come home, cook dinner, maybe play some video games, maybe edit some YouTube videos, maybe
Film some YouTube videos?
do nothing, go to sleep, get up and do it all over again.
Yeah, I mean, that's all accurate. I think what they're asking is, what's the routine like for the caregiving?
Oh. I'm glad you're here to answer that then.
Yeah. So I think we touched on this a bit before. At Caregivers, I'm in the morning, then we go to work. We do work together. Well, I shouldn't say we work.
We do not work together.
We commute together. Coincidentally, our offices are right next door to each other, which is a godsend. I used to commute on my own, and that sucked because I would have to take a bus, and if it was freezing cold, I had to wait for the bus in the freezing cold, or I would just take an Uber, which is expensive. I used to use paratransit, but if you know anything about paratransit, it's extremely unreliable. So I don't do that anymore. But yeah, we commute in together. We typically eat lunch together because we work next door. Commute home. Then the caregiver is there to help me undress, and we'll cook, hang out,
Yeah.
do it all over. Yeah.
Well, thanks for joining us on our Q&A. Again, if you have any additional questions, feel free to put them in the comments down below. We'd love to, do another Q&A in the future.
Or if you want us to elaborate on anything that we talk about here, I'm sure someone to ask more about intimacy. That's always what people want to know about. Check out our OnlyFans.
We do not have an OnlyFans.
Not yet.
Thanks for joining us, guys.
Bye.
Bye.